He's not a bat, he's a man who fights crime. And we're gonna watch him fight for a minute at a time. With John and Niall, and I guess you just rhyme with Bat Minute!
Hello, and welcome once again to Bat Minute Forever, the podcast where we try in vain to shield ourselves from the oncoming onslaught of minutes of Batman Forever, 1 minute at a time. I am one of the hosts, Niall McGowan.
And I am your other host who just can't die, John Parker.
Today we're joined by two guests, once again joined by two guests, both who are not unfamiliar with giant flames. We have, of course, all the way from Joe versus the Volcano Minute, or Joe versus the Minute, Jarf Harden.
What's up? Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, you will eventually be gazing into, a entire giant mountain of liquid magma. So this kind of sight will not be unfamiliar to you, I imagine, at some point.
Not unfamiliar at all, yeah.
Yeah, and then on the other side, we have Alex Thompson from Independence Day Minute, which, of course, features many giant balls of flame flying towards the camera. So...
They like to go after the landmarks.
That and the dogs who manage to avoid those flames.
Indeed.
That one classic tunnel scene.
Yes.
That is a great scene. Because even though I know what's going to happen, when I watch that bit again, I get really worried for the dog. Every time, even though I know.
I get worried for a dog, but I know it's not a subversive enough movie or an edgy enough movie that would ever kill the dog.
I see, that's the thing. I shouldn't be worried about the dog because I know that as well. But they pull it off. How do they do it?
I have to say, that's the skill of doing that thing. It's the same with Back to the Future. Like every single time, when Doc Brown can't quite get the thing connected to the clock tower, so Marty can hit it at the right time. You're just like, It's like, I've seen it a million times. I know he gets him back, but it's just that well done that you're just like, oh crap, he's not gonna do it. But anyway. One person who also may not survive this encounter is Batman in Minute 80. Minute 80 begins with a ball of flame flinging itself towards the screen, and it ends 1 minute later with Batman buried alive. So that's the end of him. And this is, in fact, the last episode of Bat Minutes ever, because, of course, the character dies after this. So.
Oh, it's an honor. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Batman.
Only the best.
I just want to, since this is the last minute with Two-Face this week, I think we had asked both of the guests last minute, and then we got into a sidebar, which I know sidebar on this podcast is completely unbelievable.
What?
Jarf, what is your thought? What are your thoughts on the portrayal of Two-Face by Tommy Lee Jones in this movie?
Oh, I agree with what's been said. That my major issue with him now is the lack of distinction between Harvey Dent and Two-Face. When I saw this movie back in the 90s, his whole portrayal grated on me non-stop, and it's just because it's not the right movie for me at the right time. So I was just getting into Frank Miller, and I was obsessed with the Batman animated series, and so this is just not the type of movie that I wanted. But now I can appreciate it for what it is. It's campy, it's funny and colorful, so I don't mind when he goes zany. But it just, if there was some kind of counterpoint to it, then I'd be totally cool with it.
Yeah, and I think there was a way they could have had that more bipolar performance and still kept it in this vein, but
so then, of course, we have this. This is a moment I think I get why they did it at the time, but I think it makes it very 90s. Because Batman, of course, then covers himself with his cape, and he's got a little button on his belt that he pushes, and then he kind of turns into like Alex Mack or like the T-1000, basically, because at that point everyone knew the T-1000 effects. So much so that they made a TV show, the Alex Mack show, where it was basically like, oh, she can turn into the T-1000. So it's like, yeah, his cape then becomes like the reflective material that you often see firefighters and stuff using, I guess. So he can coat himself from the flames. Because I guess at this point we're just assuming, oh, it's like a rubber or like a leather cape he's got on. And it's like, I don't think you needed to have the effect, quite frankly. I think he could have just got away with, like, he covers himself up in the cape, and then it comes out, and he's like, the cape is flame-proof, because he has flame-proof cape in the comics. Like, he fights Firefly all the time. He just holds the cape up. It doesn't have to change color or anything. It's just...
The average moviegoer's an idiot.
Yeah.
You have to make it obvious.
Okay, yeah, it's just like, it's a nice money shot, and it's like, oh, we got that cool effect that everybody liked from that movie a couple of years back.
There are some effects that don't work for you in hindsight, even as a non-discerning 7-year-old with a 7-year-old's palate. This effect didn't work for me and wasn't clear to me what was going on.
Well, I will say it is not clear what's going on, because it's like, how is he changing? Is he got something like, is it some sort of liquid that's pouring out onto the top of the cape to coat it? Is it that the mere fibers of the cape are changing?
Transubstantiating?
Yeah, it's like, I guess you could be like, Chris Nolan did explain it more, where like in Batman Begins, he's like, it's a memory cloth cape. So if you press this little thing, I guess it's in Batman's hand or whatever, like then an electric current will go through it and it'll stiffen. So that's how it becomes a glider. This is like, there's a button he presses, and then somehow
changes the material of the cape?
Yeah. How? How does it change the material? Like, how is that physically possible?
I found the shot of the button confusing too, just because that didn't look like he was flipping a switch on his belt, which somehow you never saw before the shot. Like it, that looked like it was cutting to somebody else in the Batmobile, flipping a switch in the Batmobile that was doing something by remote control. I don't think that's what it's supposed to be, but it just didn't, like the way that it was lit.
Yeah,
it really looks like the Batmobile to me too.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm glad that I'm not alone.
Because that pink light isn't motivated by anything in the scene. Yeah. So it's got to be motivated by, I don't know, whatever's in the Batmobile or wherever the Batmobile is, or something in the Batcave or something.
Well, they didn't mention this in any of the materials I looked at, but do you think maybe they added that shot, because people were confused? So that and the effect. Because it does feel like that's been shot separately.
Yeah, and if they just had the voiceover of Alfred saying, "Switching over to fireproof mode, sir."
Yeah, honestly, you know what, John? I bet you that's what it is. I bet you originally he just tucked and rolled under his cape, and enough people said, I don't get it, that they had to add this effect that doesn't look great, and this pickup shot of a hand flipping a switch that doesn't really seem to make sense and doesn't entirely look like it's on the bat belt, on the utility belt, just to explain it for the mouth breathers.
Because you don't get the vibe that he's doing that shot you see of the switch. Yeah. It doesn't look like that is him huddled up under his cape at all. At most, it could be him stood up outside somewhere.
Yeah.
I think it's also like the buttons are so close together as well. He's got big clumpy gloves. I keep imagining, like, now we're in a post-Marvel world or something. Like, you could have a joke of like, it turns his suit into like disco Batman, and it's like
he hits the wrong button and turns on the windshield wipers.
It's like, it's my birthday. It's like, oh, god damn it.
I guess I do want to slightly apologize. It looks like the pink light is semi-motivated, because you can see at the very beginning of the minute this room has red lights for some reason.
Yeah, but it's nowhere near where he currently is.
It's nowhere near where he is. But
and how's it getting through the cape?
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, it's crazy. I also like the way he's doing the old duck and cover move, because I find that hilarious. I've always thought duck and cover's just weird, right? My theory behind it turned out was slightly false. My theory behind telling people to duck and cover was it just sort of keeps them quiet and calm while they die. The inevitable is coming. Don't panic. Just get under the table.
It's kind of like telling you to get into the recovery position. just hug yourself and just like, don't worry, everything will be fine. I was like, well, we'll get out of this, right? Sure.
That's how I've always thought of it. So I looked into it for this, and it turns out, I'm not going to go all technical, but it turns out it is a moderately sensible thing to do in nuclear attack. Like, if you are not in the epicenter, obviously, because you'll be vaporized. But other than that, if you do duck and cover, your chance of survival does dramatically increase. So I roll it back. It's a sensible thing. Batman knows better.
Did it specify why it's a sensible thing, or?
It's basically because, unless you're in the epicenter, like, you can a lot of deaths are caused by things flying around
falling
and
debris. So you're by
debris.
tucking and rolling, you're protecting your vital organs the most. So it's not protection from like fallout as much as it's protection from falling girders and stuff.
Yeah, you've still got to try and get away from the fallout as quick as you can. Like, obviously, you're still going to be damaged, but you might survive. So
yeah. If you've got to take a hit somewhere, your back is probably the best place.
Yeah, and you don't want to get smashed on the skull by a brick or something flying thousands miles an hour through the air.
This reminds me of The Simpsons, where Bart and Milhouse are reading Radioactive Man and learn his secret origin. That's like he was at ground zero for a nuclear explosion. I always thought that would kill you. Now I know different.
Smart words to live by, everybody.
It was like, what? Genes, cut, choke, an A-bomb. Becoming radioactive. From this day forward, I will be radioactive, man. But yes, that's the thing. Like, so we do get Batman. He has ducked and covered. He's rolled up there. And of course, Two-Face and his goons are all celebrating and whatnot. And then I
love this celebration. I just love how stupid it is. Look at it. It's absurd. These are the things I used to hate about this movie, and now I love them. What's going on?
It's a puzzling thing to me. The goons for the superheroes in these movies, are they, like, do they sort of believe in Two-Face's cause? How much do they care, or how much are they just, it's a living?
Yeah, these ones seem to care a little bit more than in the previous... Actually, I say the previous movie. No, I'm talking about 89 here.
No.
In 89, they just seem like Joker's inherited these gangsters and got them to dress up. You're like, okay. Whereas the last movie, in Returns, they're quite involved as well, aren't they? These
Well, they were Penguin's guys.
Yeah.
These guys, even though they have Two-Face masks on, these seem to mostly be like hired goons.
But they also seem kind of into it.
I like to think, my personal headcanon as to why these goons are so insanely buff is because all the working criminals, all the jobbing goons of Gotham, they've had to up their game because of Batman.
Yeah.
Because Batman come in and kick the crap out of you. So now these are like the same guys from 89. It's just now they're jacked because they have to be jacked.
It's the point from the end of Batman Begins. It's escalation, right?
Yeah,
you start wearing armor, they start using armor-piercing rounds.
Yeah, so like now these guys have been doing the cardio for a couple of years, and now they're just thankful, like, we finally killed him. We can just go back to being like slob goons again.
Yeah, the law enforcement are now martial arts fighting us, so we need to be buffer, better fighters.
Yeah, 100%. So I think they are genuinely like, just as like, common crooks. They're like, oh, we finally killed Batman. We don't have to worry about that anymore. So like, it's not so much that they're emotionally invested in Two-Face's own schemes and in his quest for vengeance. It's just more like, he went to them, would you want to kill Batman? And they're like, oh yeah, Batman broke my arm one time for like mugging an old lady. Yes, of course I want to kill Batman.
I was picturing Two-Face giving him like a rousing speech before they set off on this caper, to sort of motivate them, like, the Bat has, repressed us and prevented us from making a good, honest, dishonest living, and so on and so forth. And if you want to continue to make a living doing mookery, we kill the Bat tonight.
Oh, I could totally see that happen.
Yeah, thankfully, he didn't steal his speech from Oswald Cobblepot and his whole, like, why be biased, male or female? Hell, the sexes are equal, whether erogenous zones are blown sky high. Who the hell?
Hey, you can repurpose it. And you could argue, you know, if Batman didn't have that cape, his erogenous zones may have been blown sky
Yeah,
high.
that is true. Batman
but
or
then
Batwoman.
Batman does the coolest thing.
That's my favorite.
Possibly,
shot.
possibly the coolest thing in this film. I think.
This is like, it's kind of weird in that, like, because the whole last minute I was so saying, like, yeah, modern day comics make Batman a little too, like, infallible and all this kind of stuff, and I like when he is vulnerable. But then there's still that side of me that likes the Batman as like a modern urban myth kind of thing. And this shot, the fact that all these goons are seeing it as well, is like, we got the guy. We threw a friggin', like, filled the room with gas and blew him up inside it. And he still came out. And he strides out looking cool AF. He looks
Angry.
Yeah, he's furious at them. You would be terrified if you saw it. You'd be like, oh my God, you cannot kill this guy. So I like the fact that they've also now brought they had him a little bit fallible, and they've also brought back the kind of, you know, at least to the common crook would be like, this guy is not human. He is somehow, I can't comprehend how he survived it, but you cannot kill this guy.
Yeah, Two-Face looks shocked and scared.
Yeah. Although I also love Two-Face's reaction of just like, why can't you just die?
I honestly think this shot of Batman at 25 seconds, he just emerged from the flames. He's a little sweat matted. He looks pissed. I think this is my favorite single shot of any Batman in any live action movie.
It's definitely up there for me so far.
he does
I can't imagine the next movie's going to have any better ones.
He does look really awesome.
Yeah.
And I like the
it's just such a
line, why
balance.
can't you just die too? But it did bug me that Two-Face's inconsistency, that he is being classic Batman TV show villain and setting up this elaborate trap to try and kill Batman. But then when it doesn't work, he's like, oh, well, F it. I'm just going to blow you up and blow a bunch of stuff down and bury you. Like, I think you have to be one or the other. You can't be supervillain death trap and then forget it. We'll just try heavy artillery.
That didn't bother me personally. It didn't bother me at all, because I think because I feel for him. I feel like I've been that frustrated where you're like, why can't you just do the thing I want you to do? So like the fact that he spent time and effort. We saw how well rehearsed it was, where he was friggin' leading them by shooting a gun into the air and everything to make sure he knew where he was. I set up so much time. There's no way he could have survived this. And then when he does, he's just like, why can't you just, like, the anger gets to him, and he's like, I'm blowing everything up. I'm going to keep shooting.
Is it interesting that the overkill strategy of just screw it, shoot, blow things up was more successful than the plan?
Right.
Yeah.
Batman would have died if not for the partner that no one saw coming.
Oh, yeah, I've got a lot to say about that. I'm excited about that.
Does anybody else wonder if this podcast is just going to be tracking the progression of Niall becoming a supervillain? He's over here. He's empathizing. You know, he's like
He's empathizing.
He's sympathizing with
he's
Lex
already a
Luthor. He's feeling for Two-Face. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
He's already pure evil, so it's just going to take a little push, really.
it is what it is. You know, if that's what comes of this show, so be it. Who was I to question fate?
They say
one more.
too much audio editing can drive a man insane.
I mean, that's true.
It's just Mavis become like the editor, and I'm just like stealing like a Freddy Krueger outfit and just like having the nice fingers. Because like, yes, I'm editing everything now. I'm just
He wants to kill them. He wants to kill them all to get sweet, sweet silence.
And you could make loads of good puns about, you know, cutting and things. You could have scissors.
like a death trap where you crush someone and you call it the compressor or something like that.
I think you could also. This is the only way this one-liner could work. You kill someone and then you just go, shh.
Oh. That'd be beautiful. That'd be amazing.
One thing, though, there's a couple of things from the novelization. The one big one I'll leave until, like, what happens in the minute. But I do enjoy the fact that, because like in this, they just have like Two-Face fires and everything starts collapsing. The whole building comes down. Got a great bit of Alien Goldenthal doing like some kind of church organ stuff. Very dramatic. And Two-Face and his goons are just guffawing and laughing away because victory. And then at this point in the novelization, Two-Face says to himself, like, at last, the Bat is dead. And now for the Riddler. Which is just the thing, like, within this movie, Two-Face and the Riddler are like best friends, basically. Within a couple of minutes, you see them like all hugging each other and stuff. But I always felt they should have been more like antagonistic towards each other because, you know, the Riddler's an interloper into Two-Face's world, and now he's just an irritant to him, basically. So I really like the fact that he's just like, his number one priority after thinking he's killed Batman is like, now I gotta take out that other asshole who's been yanking my chain for the past week. And like, thank God I can finally clean the slate and I'll be back to friggin' normal, I guess.
Oh yeah, he's totally gonna turn on him. He doesn't want to be hanging out with the Riddler.
Because if you're weaving that plot thread in, then I could see you then saying, well, maybe the solution is Batman appeals to the Harvey side of Harvey Dent and gets him to help him take down Riddler.
Yeah.
We're not in that kind of a nuanced world, I think.
That would have been harkening back like the Harvey Kent stories of the original Two-Face stories. Was, I think there was a point where Two-Face attacks and almost kills Gilda Dent. Gilda Kent, I guess it would have been back then. And after that sort of shakes him out of his sort of Two-Face stupor of like, I can't keep doing this. I've put my wife in danger and stuff. And then it ends with like Two-Face teaming up with Batman to kind of take down the gangsters because he's like, oh, you know, I now see the error of my ways and stuff. So you could have had Two-Face teaming up against Batman for the...
You could have.
For the, you know, they take down the Riddler. Although that was a thing I always hated in 80s cartoons when it's like, He-Man and Skeletor have to team up to take down the Snake Men or something.
You could have, but I think the movie's not about the health of the Batman-Harvey relationship or the Bruce-Harvey relationship. It's about the health of the Batman-Dick relationship. So you've already got those two, the Batman and Robin relationship, whatever, folks.
I think you'll find, contrary to popular rumors, Batman has a very healthy dick already. Okay?
Yes, he does indeed. So I think you've already got those two at odds, learning to have a healthy relationship. So I don't know that it works if you then also have Batman allying with Two-Face in a way.
But one thing, though, in talking about, like, you know, layers of complexity that this movie could have had, is that the novelization does add in, I think it might be one of its finest moments during Batman's burial here, when the building's collapsing atop him. Because you get a bit of prose that's just basically describing kind of his inner thoughts, basically. And it's a much more sort of complex than anything would be led to believe. Well, it would have added in, actually, had they kept all the Red Book stuff, but they didn't. They cut all that out of the movie.
Sadly.
But yeah, it's, you know, it's a little bit long. I'll try to speed through it. But it says, buried alive. The screeching filled his ears and the blackness filled his soul. From down below him, although he couldn't see them, because he couldn't see anything, he sensed his parents' hands reaching up for him, desiccated, skeletal, clawing at his feet, pulling him down with them into the grave that he had once stood in front of and sworn he would dedicate his life to... To what? To fighting crime? He could do that through the Wayne Foundation. To vengeance? Why did killing grate against his soul, then? Why not an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth? To bring them back? Nothing could. To make them rest easier? They were dead. To join them? Yes, of course, that was it. It wasn't about anything so noble as doing right and seeking justice. This whole thing was just a massive death wish. Suicide on a spectacular scale. He'd worked for it. He deserved it. And now all he had to do was lean back and enjoy it. So basically, it's kind of saying that now that Batman's facing certain death, he's kind of realizing he's just been on the kind of suicide campaign this whole time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, he's, you know, this whole is for a noble, you know, quest for justice. It was actually like a smokescreen, because what it really was that he just wanted to be with his parents again. which is another layer of psychology that this movie never really touches upon. Although if it did, it would have been with the fact that all the Red Book stuff they cut out was going to be a reveal that Bruce blames himself for his parents' death. So all that Red Book stuff is in the novel. So it's there you go. That's that Peter David sort of hoisting up the material into something a little more, not intellectually satisfying. That sounds a bit pretentious, but like a little bit more complex than
more nuanced.
Yeah, than the finished film.
And it would have given like an extra level to the whole thing with Dick becoming Robin, because it's another reason he doesn't want him to follow in his footsteps. Because it's self-destructive.
I like that.
Yeah. And like, that is a thing that's brought up again throughout Batman stories. Once again, Chris Nolan, of course, in Dark Knight Rises, like Alfred having to walk away from Bruce because he's just like, I think you have no chance against this guy. I think what you're doing is actually you just want to die. You want him to kill you. That's why you're doing all this. And it's like, it worked well in Dark Knight Rises, this idea that Bruce Wayne was just a guy just down in the dumps and, Asajj, just completely soaked with guilt for the death of Rachel Dawes and all this other stuff, that he was actively saw an opportunity to go out in a blaze of glory. And then, of course, the events of Dark Knight Rises happen. But yeah, so I just thought that was a nice little addition on Peter David's part there.
Yeah, I like that. That definitely lifts it up.
Yeah. But lifting up while simultaneously burying everything under rubble. But yeah, no, because obviously we've not got much time to do the third episode. Should we press on with this? Does anyone else have any notes for this minute?
No, I really don't.
No, I'm good too.
The rest of it's just Batman being buried under things.
Yeah,
buried under things and looking an awful lot like the origin of the Sandman in Spider-Man 3 here. That's all I could think of.
That'd be something, then like Two-Face seeing like a sand typhoon coming out after him. It's like, God damn it, you really can't kill this guy.
You can't, he's invincible. And we're invincible. We're going to regroup, but we're going to be back on Friday for more wonderful, wonderful Bat-Minute action. So, yeah, come talk to us. We'll do plugs on Friday. We're all over the social media. You know where to find us. So, yeah, we will see you on Friday for more Bat-Minute Forever.
Next time, Holy Submerged Chevalier. The Baron of Bisection's blasting of a cap has resulted in the burial of a formidable bat. But as we hold a moment of silence in the Bat-Minute cave, can a heaven-sent hand save the grim gallant from his gravelly grave? Find out Friday. Same Bat Pod, different Bat-Minute.
Ba-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.